joined now to talk about this by Jeff Cohen, who's a media critic and columnist. He's a retired journalism professor from Ithaca College. He founded the media watchdog group FAIR, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, in 1986, and co-founded the online activist group rootsaction.org in 2011. Cohen has produced documentary movies, including The Corporate Coup d'etat and All Governments Lie. He's the author of Cable News Confidential, My Misadventures in Corporate Media. And he's been a TV commentator at CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, and was the senior producer of MSNBC's Phil Donahue primetime show until he was terminated 3 weeks before the Iraq invasion. So welcome, Jeff.
Great to be with you.
So I want you to tell me a little bit about before we kind of get into the why of it, right? Like why you have a different perspective on some of this stuff than some of the people I was just talking about do. What Roots Action has been doing with regards to all of this, and particularly, I guess, something under the umbrella of Roots Action, which is an organization called Vote Trump Out.
Yeah. Roots Action is an independent online force. We have over 1 million people. Norman Solomon and I started Roots Action. We were both Bernie delegates to the 2020 convention that did not happen. We both voted down the party platform. If there had been a real convention, that would have been a big news story. The Democratic leadership suppressed it. More than roughly one out of 4 delegates voted against the party platform because it didn't include Medicare for all and some other issues. That's unprecedented. So the Vote Trump Out campaign, votetrumpout.org or hashtag Vote Trump Out, it's an effort by those of us on the left who have a critique of corporate capitalism, have a critique of Biden and the corporate Democratic leadership. We were spurred on. It was Norman Solomon, me, Noam Chomsky, Daniel Ellsberg, and Marjorie Cohen of the National Lawyers Guild. We said, despite our savage criticisms of Biden, he's the only tool we have to eject Trump. So we launched this massive campaign at social media with all these left-wing luminaries, Barbara Ehrenreich, Medea Benjamin, Chomsky, you name it. And we're aiming at swing state voters, what we call swing voters on the left, who live in swing states. And we're saying you have to vote for Biden as sort of he's our tool to get Trump out. And then we challenge Biden from day one. And we believe, it's our analysis, we worked heavily in the Bernie campaign and other campaigns, that the left is better organized, better funded, better networked, has real momentum, even has allies inside Congress like we never had before. The squad is bigger than ever. The only thing that can break that left momentum is Trump getting 4 more years. So I agree completely with what you said about Biden. He's been a tool of the credit card companies, the banks, 48 years, and you can't really point to anything progressive he's ever done. And yet he is our tool to get Trump out. In many ways, tool, has many meanings. He's a corporate tool, and unfortunately, he's the only tool the left has to get rid of Trump. And then we start fighting the corporate centrists and the corporate leadership of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so I can imagine somebody watching this on YouTube or listening to us the podcast and hearing all of that, right? And saying, okay, well, I get why you hate Trump. I get why you want to fight with the sort of corporate, centrism that Biden represents. But why is it that you want to take sides between these two things in the first place, right? And I think that there might be a few answers to that, but I think it might not be obvious to everybody at first. And I think in particular it might not be obvious because oftentimes I think when we hear people making this case, we hear people saying things that might be either implausibly apocalyptic or else like implausibly optimistic, right? So like the implausibly apocalyptic stuff would be like, that if Trump wins, I don't know, there's going to go all the way to fascism and we'll all be in concentration camps next year or something. I don't think that's true. The implausibly optimistic stuff might be when there's a certain kind of progressives for Biden-y kind of way of making this case where you say, well, he's flawed, he's imperfect, but, right, and then you basically assume that everything that's buried on some campaign website there is stuff that Biden is actually going to do. And I don't think you're making either of those assumptions.
Right. I like the way you've laid that out, because vote Trump out and all of our endorsers, we don't take the crazily optimistic view or the crazily apocalyptic. We're looking at things how they are. And clearly, if Trump wins another 4 years, even though, and I can make the case in so many ways, the left is stronger than it's been, at least in my lifetime, and I'm 68 years old, that we are in a position, if Trump's in office, of just fighting defense. We're right. Playing defense. He's immune to progressive pressure or protest. Biden, on the other hand, will know that the only way he got in, it certainly wasn't on his own merit, is because this growing left, and most Democrats overwhelmingly, even in Mississippi, they're for Medicare for all, they're for the Bernie Sanders or social democratic agenda. He knows he didn't get in on his own merits, and we're going to be fighting him from day one. So the issue is, for those left-wing voters you're talking about, is which opponent would you rather have in the White House? It's that simple.
Yeah.
If you're part of the left, who do you want to be battling? Do you want to be battling Biden or Trump? I want to be battling Biden. And Chomsky's been very good on this. And, I've known him for decades. He hears people say, I have a moral right. I will never vote for that warmonger. Yeah. You will never get me to vote for that corporatist. Yeah. And Chomsky argues that that's not a moral position. A moral position isn't what makes me feel good or what makes me feel pure or what makes me feel superior. The moral decision-making is what helps other people, especially the most vulnerable people around me. So the moral decision, if you live in a swing state, I don't care what you do in right. California, New York, vote third party, that's fine by me. But if you live in a swing state, and I wish I did, I grew up in Michigan, I wish I was still there. I've been organizing in Michigan. All of my left-wing friends are voting for Biden, and they're trying to get all of their left-wing friends to vote for Biden so it doesn't happen again. That's the point. The moral decision, I believe, if you live in a swing state, is eject Trump, and then we can battle Biden.
Yeah. So let's talk about why you think that's the moral position, right? I think, I agree that I think sort of thinking of these things like just purely like as an expression of values, right? That's like I hate this person for good reason, right? I hate that person for good reason. So I'm going to express my hatred. I think is really the instinct of a version of the left that's been out of power for so long, and in so many ways, right? That it starts to think of politics purely as a matter of kind of exhibiting commitment rather than trying to change anything, right?
Well, personal self-expression.
Yeah.
Politics is personal self-expression rather than how do we transform the society into something just?
Right. And of course, like you said, like a warmongering neoliberal, like Biden, right, is certainly not going to be on the side of that transformation, but there are still reasons why we might vastly prefer to fight with that enemy than the enemy that we've got, right? So I just, like in the last few minutes we got here, I just want to run through a couple of those. So one that I think should matter a lot to the left is about organized labor. That of course, the question is not, is Biden, a friend of the working class or anything like that? Clearly not, right? But he is a Democrat, and I think you can say that the Democratic Party institutionally just pursues a different strategy there than the Republican Party does. That even though they might do things like sign trade deals that that really undermine the bargaining power of certain industrial unions and things like that, you're not going to get Biden doing, just as you didn't get Obama doing, just as you didn't get Bill Clinton doing. You're not going to get Biden appointing people to the National Labor Relations Board and the courts whose entire mission in life, what gets them up in the morning, is trying to stamp out what's left of collective bargaining in the United States. And you really have had that with Trump. Like if you look at the last few years of NLRB and court decisions, they have overturned Obama era and previous precedents over and over and over again, always to make it harder to organize unions, always to make it harder to negotiate for better pay and conditions, and always harder to recruit new members. And I think that if you take for granted, yes, the Democrats will not save us, we need to save ourselves. Well, a big part of how we save ourselves is through labor organizing. And with Trump in office, that's just vastly more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, who's the labor secretary? It's Antonin Scalia's son. And with Biden, there's talk that Bernie might be the labor secretary. Frankly, I'd prefer him in the Senate. But
yeah, I would be very surprised if Biden did that, right? But I think that he's certainly not going to. It's certainly not going to be anybody like Antonin Scalia's son. It'll probably be some mediocre Democrat. And the difference between some mediocre Democrat and a fanatical union buster actually does matter quite a bit here.
It sure does. I mean, you brought up a key issue for those of us who are socialists, which is working class organizing. But another issue is anti-racism. I mean, what's the difference on Muslims? And look what Trump has whipped up. What about immigrants and undocumented workers? So you can go from that. That's why I say the moral, if you live in a swing state and you have the opportunity to be part of a broad movement, including a broad left movement, to eject Trump, but you think it's your moral duty for self-expression to either write in Bernie or write in Trotsky or write in Karl Marx or don't vote at all or vote ineffectually, vote third party in a swing state. I'm arguing that your moral decision is let's make a decision in the voting booth or with our ballot that helps the working class, helps immigrants, helps people of color, helps the most vulnerable, and then let's go fight the corporate Democrats because they're going to be in power because we helped put them in power. And now we got to fight them.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Look, I live in Michigan. I already sent in my mail-in ballot. And let me tell you what, it took me about 5 minutes. That's not the beginning and end of my political involvement.
Well, have you seen, I mean, part of Vote Trump Out and votetrumpout.org, we've circulated 12 different videos, and they're all really radical videos. And the newest one is Chomsky saying, look, how you vote, what you do with those 5 minutes, that's not political activism. That's what the mainstream media and the corporatists want you to think it is. Oh, your vote, you get to, on CNN, express yourself. This is your time to, well, no. Our argument at Vote Trump Out and Roots Action is activism and politics is what you do every day of the year. But on this particular period of time, we have to vote Trump out, and then let's fight the corporatists of the center who are easier to fight than the far right wing.
And I think that's the key point, right? Like it's not about, I mean, like we're certain, like there are people who have this perspective, of course, right? But it's obviously not our perspective that that everything that's bad is because of Trump. There are no pre-existing problems. We just get rid of Trump and then we go back to brunch. Like our perspective is that this is a long-term struggle to undo all the things that got us Trump in the first place, frankly, right? And
yeah, that's the key, because I think back to 2008 and people elected Obama, first African-American president. He'd run anti-war compared to Hillary, and people went to sleep. and the left, it's not going to happen. There's no honeymoon for Biden. And there's already these coalitions that we've been a part of with Bernie Delegates Network and all these coalitions that have been built, beginning with Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter. There's no honeymoon for Biden. And everyone knows it, and we're already planning. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be organizing a demonstration on Inauguration Day against Biden. So, I mean, the left is on the move. The left is growing. The left is strong. You want to stop that momentum? Stay home, or don't bother ejecting Trump. That's what will stop our momentum.
Yeah. So right, because so there are two issues, right? One is that if you do see this as a long-term struggle, the terrain on which that struggle is fought is going to be different, right? Yep. Depending on, I mean, those things, it's not very sexy, but those National Labor Relations Board rulings actually do matter a lot for working class organizing, for example. And then the other issue is that how we see like what happens, what happens, going forward, right? Like I think that some people do this thing where they'll kind of merge together the issue of, what liberals are doing, right? People who might, indeed go back to sleep, right? If Biden is elected with what the left is doing, when that's actually a more alive distinction now than it's certainly been in my lifetime, before, right? We have three, actually now four, right? People who have had some level of affiliation with the Democratic Socialists of America who are in Congress now, and so I think that distinction isn't going anywhere. But what I would actually, in fact, I think that if you want to snuff out that energy, I think the best way to do that would be to give Trump a second term, because if the question that I really urge a lot of people to think about is, why did we get Biden in the first place, right? Like, why is Biden the nominee? Why isn't Bernie Sanders the nominee? And there isn't just one answer to that, of course, but a big part of the answer, we know it's not because Democratic primary voters preferred Biden's policies. All of the polls in all the states that Biden won on Super Tuesday consistently showed, majorities of Democrats supporting things like Medicare for all. So it's not that, right? It's that after 4 years of Trump, people who voted Democratic primaries were desperate to eject him, and they thought that that a safe centrist like Biden would be the best bet for doing that. Obviously, I think they're wrong. I think that if COVID and the downturn hadn't happened, I think Biden might very well have lost. But they have. If that already was the case in 2020, then by the time we got to 2024, if Trump served a second term, I can't imagine how much stronger that longing would have been, how much more Democratic voters would be willing to settle, for just about anything in the primary if they thought that it would regain them the White House. So I think that the left is already in a weaker position than it would have been in some ways, because Trump has been president for the last 4 years, and would be in a much weaker position if Trump was president for 8 years.
I like the arguments you're making. I mean, look, we're on the left. When I was young, we fought the Cold War liberals, because they were prosecuting the Vietnam War. And the left has been fighting the corporate liberals of today. And when I hear like third party, they want to vote third party in Michigan, they make this argument that, oh, you're merging the left with the liberals. The reality is, if Trump wins another 4 years, we're all going to be joining them in fighting defensive battles to maintain civil liberties. That, the way that we want to open up this battle between the corporatists in the center and the left is get Biden in there, and we'll have a strong, it's not just the few that are with DSA. There's a lot that that are allied with DSA and that are going into Congress. And a lot of Cori Bush from St. Louis, Black Lives Matter activist. I've got here in the Bronx, Jamal Bowman. I mean, it's really an exciting thing. The left is strong in the streets. We're strong in elections. And we want to keep that momentum going. And we want to be able to challenge the corporate centrists to show the distinctions between the left and the corporatists. And you can't do that if all we're doing the next 4 years is fighting Trump to save basic democratic norms. We'll be backpedaling, and we'll be closer to the liberals than ever in joining them and trying to save certain things. So I want to open up this battle, and the corporate tool that we're using, or tools, are Biden-Harris. So I say, and people should go to our website. You'll see we are not liberals. Go to votetrumpout.org and you'll see what we stand for, or rootsaction.org, the group Norman Solomon and I founded. Why did we found Roots Action? All of these big online groups move on. They wouldn't criticize Obama. That's why we started Roots Action in 2011. And our idea was, whether a Democrat or Republican is in power, there's got to be an online force that stands up for peace and justice and whistleblowers and labor. And that's why we started. We got tired of writing articles critical of MoveOn in 2009-10, and we started our own. And it's a principled left group that's got now over 1 million people strong. So I encourage anyone who's still on the fence, go to votetrumpout.org, and you'll see all these left-wing luminaries pleading with you, if you live in a swing state, to vote for Biden, and then let's go on and fight Biden.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thanks, Ben. Bye-bye.